coaches that's not part of it.
Yeah.
Rest, recovery, hydration, proper eating habits, how that affects performance, it never came into effect. It's like, no, we're going to grind you and see what your limit is.
Yeah.
And the ones that can make it through, they're going to make the team. The ones that can't,
athletes.
Fucking out of here.
Yeah.
But that's just, thankfully, that's not the way we do it anymore. But I don't think it ever has to be.
They've had to change a lot of things in the NFL, right? I mean, concussions.
Yeah.
Now people realize what an issue that is. I mean, when you first started playing football, how much talk was there about CTE and concussion? None.
Yeah. You get dinged in the head, you see stars, and get back out there.
Yeah.
Now there's much better policies in place and awareness around it. And, probably as much attention as could possibly be to any type of head injury that happens. We have independent people, spotters who can pull people out of games who might have got dinged up. We have multiple independent medical personnel whose main job is to watch for head injuries now, which is great. And the recovery process to actually get back on the field is way more difficult. You got to pass a number of different tests. It's all slotted on a day-to-day basis. It really sets up you're not going to be able to come back the next week.
What protocols do they have for recovery? Like, so if someone gets dinged, they get concussed, what do they do to try to help them recover?
Well, I don't think that part is maybe where it needs to be yet. It's more go home and rest.
Really?
Yeah.
So they don't have any modalities, they don't have any therapies, they don't have anything that they do? Hyperbaric chambers, nothing?
Not in Green Bay.
Really?
And I would say not in probably most places. I think in any business, I'm not just going to single out the NFL, but there is an aversion to a new way of doing things always. Yeah. And I think until they see other people doing it and having success, maybe it's always going to be met with, no, this is how we do things. We've always done it a certain way. This is how we're going to do things. Now there's education that comes up and conversations, and we further it, but it's not like, hey, you got a concussion. Okay, you're going to hyperbaric for, days 1 through 3 and do light therapy in this day and do, and take, this on this, whatever it might be. There's not.
And what tests do they do on people to make sure that they have recovered?
Cognitive testing, there's balance testing. There's multiple cognitive tests and then a balance test. And it's all, compared to your baseline that you do at the beginning of every season.
When you hear about guys like Jim McMahon that are suffering really badly now, does this give you pause?
Yeah, for sure. And I know Jim, and I'm definitely friendly with Jim. I enjoy being around him. He plays in the same golf tournament I do in Tahoe. He's played every year it's ever been on, and I've talked to him about his issues and heard him talk about it as well. And it definitely gives me pause. That's why I'm always, doing research on my own about stuff that people have done. Joe Namath has talked a lot about, his use of hyperbaric chambers actually and healing some of the gray matter that has been associated with traumatic brain injuries. But, CTE has been linked to a number of suicides that we've had from former players. And it's a real thing. I really do think it's an issue. The NFL, I think, is doing a lot to combat it now, thankfully, with the standardization of the helmets that we use is way different than it used to be. I mean, there is a very high standard and testing process that goes into that. They've tried to police the helmet to helmet hits that we've had. There's way more protection for players that carry the ball. There's protection of all sorts for any type of helmet to helmet contact. You can't erase any of it, and some of it honestly is the draw to the sport,
right,
is the violent nature of it. But I think all of us realize the risks that we're taking. I mean, you should. You play in a contact sport, and there's things that to look into and to think about when you're playing and when you're done playing to make sure you're cognitive function is still there, and you're
Good moment to pause. It's not just football. We've got hockey, we've got soccer headers. That there's head trauma in basketball. I mean, it's not quite as deliberate. It's just an accident.
Yeah.
But any contact sport basically has the possibility of a head injury. It's interesting that the NFL has done the helmet thing. They're pulling people off and making them actually pass a cognitive test. How many fingers am I holding up? Isn't the only test that they're doing anymore. They have continuous performance tasks like an IVA or a TOBA type test to see what your reaction time, omission errors, commission errors, to test your cognitive function. But they also test balance. It's not just if your brain's intact for thinking, it's also if it's intact for controlling physical movements and your sense of balance. But the fact that they're pulling you out and making you sit out, but they don't have any designed therapy, is just, unfortunately, a couple notches below where they should be. And at this point, knowing full well CTE is happening, I mean, look at the litigation that they settled. That they should actually be doing the things we know help.
Jay, I thought we're going to try something different here at NeuroNoodle, Jay. We may get slapped on the wrist. We may not. We're going to find out. I like to, make mistakes, correct them, ask for forgiveness later. But I thought we would watch a short clip video, and let's put politics to the side, because this is going to be like Joe Rogan and Aaron Rodgers from the Green Bay Packers. Some people are funny about politics. All we're here about is we want to help people, get better. So politics. We got some Patreon love to dish out. We are supported by listeners and businesses just like you, like our gold supporter, Applied Neuroscience Incorporated, the creators of NeuroGuide, the premier EEG assessment and training software, whose demo version can be downloaded from the link here. Hey, check it out. Applied Neuroscience is having a workshop September 10th and 11th in Florida, Madera Beach, Florida. Hey, 2 ways you can participate. You can attend the workshop, or you can do it remotely through TeamViewer, or click on the link here, appliedneuroscience.com/attend-ng-workshops. Hey, check it out. Dr. Thatcher's inviting everybody that attends to his house for a cookout. Sign up now. It's going to be a blast. Woohoo! If you have any questions, email qeeg@appliedneuroscience.com. Join us. Hey, thanks to our silver supporters, Mary Tracy's awesome QEEG training program at eegstrategies.com, and Mind Media's Nexus EEG amplifier. Welcome aboard, Erwin. They're at mindmedia.com. To this side, open mind.
And also football teams. You have to set aside the fact that you're a Vikings fan and listen to the Green Bay
or Raiders
chatter
or
and
49ers.
Joe Rogan. So we'll put aside politics and the specifics of what team they're on or what sport they're in.
All right, so I'm going to put this on, and we'll just watch this for a little bit. Now, I don't know if the sound is going to come through. Let me know, Jay.
Yeah, proactive instead of reactive.
You got sound on your end?
I've got sound. It's a little muted, but it's okay.
Well, here, I'll turn it up.
2 practices a day. Yeah. And how did that change? Somebody died. And then it was 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1. And then there were some college kids that died. And then they went, oh, you can't ever do double days in a row anymore. And
No,
double
are they
days
dying
are
from
out.
heat stroke? Are they dying from exhaustion?
Both.
Yeah.
And there was some maybe genetic issues going on, but at the root, there was.
And then Jay, you just tell me when to pause, okay?
And hydration policies or education involved to allow these guys to recover.
Okay, that's good stuff. So here basically he's talking about people that are overtrained. The coach wants you to excel. They're going to push you hard. but quite often they're not paying attention to your recovery.
Yeah.
And recovery, R&R, isn't just taking a vacation in Cancun. You actually have to sleep at night to recover from the wear and tear of the workout if you're not sleeping well. And elite athletes tend to be a little overwrapped, tightly wrapped group, and the over arousal makes sleep difficult. We've actually found elite athletes do very well with SMR style training to assist with their sleep onset, to avoid the excess beta spindling that's commonly seen in elite athletes' brains. They feel it's their drive and they don't want to lose the beta, but they have to learn how to counteract it with SMR. Hydration and all of those things are great, but you have to recover with sleep. Sleep also allows you to remember, because long-term potentiation happens during sleep. Things you learn today, the coach tells you XYZ, you have to know tomorrow XYZ, or the coach thinks you're just stupid. The problem is that you're not sleeping well enough to have memory transfer. So you've got to have slow wave sleep to recover from the wear and tear of the day and to grow the dendritic connections that memory is going to be relying on. And then REM sleep plays back your memories through that, and you long-term potentiate what you've learned. So this is one topic of this clip.
Okay.
Go ahead with the rest of it.
What's going on only got changed when there was a tragedy.
Do you think that's because they are trying to instill mental toughness and just condition them to just some extreme level by doing this, and that this was like this old school
100%.
thought?
Yeah, it was, and some coaches have still said it today, how do you build callus if you don't, put them through hell? And it's like, work smarter, not longer.
Yeah.
Efficiency over time.
Well, I have a thought on that too. Is that, I think you can make people mentally tougher, but I think at the elite levels of competition, everyone's mentally tough.
Yeah.
And that's not the issue. And I've seen people fight overtrained. I saw Tim Kennedy went through 2 camps in a row because one fight got canceled and he went right into another camp. And then he wound up fighting Kelvin Gastelum and he was gassed out like almost immediately, which that fucking guy has a gas tank as big as the ocean. He's never out of gas. That's like one of his biggest strengths is his fucking relentless pace. But his body was just failing him because it had never gotten the adequate rest and recovery.
Well, I think for a lot of the
good point to stop for a moment again. In coaching, there's such a thing as peaking. You train hard, but for a week or so before your big event, you back off on the training. You let the person recover more, and it's a gentle workout instead of working things very, very hard. And you get optimum performance after peaking. If you run somebody into the ground, as Joe Rogan just mentioned, you can have somebody who's fully trained but without the recovery. If you don't have restful recovery, your gas tank is basically virtually empty. You can have a burst of energy, but you don't have the stamina because you haven't recovered. Every workout creates micro tears of the muscle. They have to be repaired during slow wave sleep. And to not do the recovery, you end up having progressive loss of muscle integrity.
mindset.
Now, post-traumatic ischemia, migraine ischemia, vascular change causing ischemia, all of those things end up having a common approach. Hyperbaric ends up being one of the major approaches.
Yeah, talk to me about that, Jay. What's he talking about? That wasn't
Sure.
around when I was playing.
Sure. And, hyperbaric is, there's soft chamber. It's kind of like a body bag with a window. You're not supposed to use full oxygen in it, and it doesn't hold the pressure as high as a hard chamber. The hard chambers with a higher pressure basically are the ones that you need for very good recovery from trauma. Extremely higher pressure, an atmosphere and a half or so, you start to actually have oxygen that enters the body. Once it's in the body, it doesn't have to flow along a blood vessel to get to their endpoint. It goes straight through tissue. It's direct perfusion. So at a high level of pressure and high level of oxygen, if you've got an impaired blood flow because of a concussion causing swelling in the brain, compressing the blood vessels in the area, the end point that needs to have the blood flow doesn't get it. in a proper way. Ischemia is less delivery of oxygen and glucose. It's not like a stroke where you don't have any flow whatsoever. It's just kind of a kink in the hose. And anybody who played with the hose as a kid knows if you kink the hose, you can stop the flow or you can restrict the flow. And post-traumatic ischemia is a restricted blood flow to an area. It's not a total cessation of flow. And you end up having EG changes in the area that are typically viewed in neurology as nonspecific. Mid-temporal sharp slow transients are indicative of ischemia, but they're irritative or ischemic, and they're nonspecific. Quite often, they're not even described by the neurologists and electroencephalographers reading the EEGs because they're a nonspecific finding, so they don't describe it. If you actually describe it, then the person referring actually can say, oh, ischemia. Yeah, they had a head injury, or they have migraine, or they're old and they've got a vascular change. We can do some hyperbaric to get oxygen and glucose to the end of the stream where it needs to get to. They can do neurofeedback to end up reducing sympathetic over arousal. Sympathetic over arousal constricts the blood vessels. If you've got an impaired flow and a constriction, now you might have reached a closure pressure. It's important to have multiple therapeutic approaches, and for the NFL not to have instituted relatively standardized approaches at this point is, I think, beneath the level that they should be at. After all, they're pros,
Yeah.
So they should be doing this right.
Yeah. Well, even Aaron Rodgers brings up our old friend, the glial cell, and he also brings up light therapy. Is he talking about like Dr. Lou Lim light therapy and Vilight?
In fact, that's photobiomodulation is being used for traumatic brain injury to good effect. It's a newer intervention, but the efficacy is basically what's driving that. People find good results, and nothing succeeds like success. If you're treating somebody with a head injury and they get better, they're going to tell people. And one person going out of your practice with a very good outcome that had a TBI is going to end up sending 3 or 4 more people, because TBIs are ubiquitous. Auto accidents, people in a sport where they have head injuries, MMA, Joe Rogan on the other end of this talking about football. Well, if you want to talk about head injuries, getting knocked out in the ring is going to give you a pretty good concussion. Recovery from that may allow you to recover, but it may not. There's dementia pugilistica, dementia because of boxing, and it mimics Parkinsonism. Gee, have you ever seen a boxer with a Parkinson's syndrome? Yeah, you can see corner. But he may have had dementia pugilistica and Parkinson's disease. It's hard to tease it out. Right. But there's quite a few cornermen in boxing that have the diagnosis of Parkinsonism, and I always scratch my head. You can see I've scratched a lot of it off. Is it Parkinsonism, or is this actually post-traumatic change? And
well, Jay, like Aaron says, it's like getting the NFL to do something. They want to see more information. It just sounds like insurance companies. It sounds like the government. Show me more information, and these guys have to do this stuff on their own, right?
Yeah.
Just
well,
like the rest
hyperbaric is it going to cost you? A heart chamber is not cheap. But football, they make plenty of money. They can afford to save the career of some of their best people for an extra few years worth of output. When you're paying somebody bazillion dollars a year, having another year or so out of them may look like a financial mistake. The reason you're paying them that much is to keep them, not to make them go away. Let's get a treatment regimen in place. Now, if we're waiting for proof beyond a shadow of a doubt, we're looking for the preponderance of evidence, not beyond a reasonable doubt. So it's like court. There's different levels of proof that you need for different kinds of cases. And for us to suggest that they use these approaches, it doesn't require proof beyond a shadow of a doubt. It requires the preponderance of evidence. We've got to show some positive outcomes, but we don't have to have dismissive proof. We just have to show this is more likely good than not. Set up a couple of randomized, I don't know if this is better than that. Randomize into the two approaches and see which one works better. That they should be doing this. And unfortunately,
that's a professional athlete there using this stuff. So
yeah.
If you can afford it, like you say. We are supported by listeners and businesses just like you, like our gold supporter, Applied Neuroscience Incorporated, the creators of NeuroGuide, the premier EEG assessment and training software whose demo version can be downloaded from the link here. Hey, check it out. Applied Neuroscience is having a workshop September 10th and 11th in Florida, Madera Beach, Florida. Hey, 2 ways you can participate. You can attend the workshop, or you can do it remotely through TeamViewer, or click on the link here, appliedneuroscience.com/attend-ng-workshops. Hey, check it out. Dr. Thatcher's inviting everybody that attends to his house for a cookout. Sign up now. It's going to be a blast. Woohoo! If you have any questions, email QEEG@appliedneuroscience.com. Join us. All right, let's close out Aaron and see what he's got.
Lesser at risk to some of the effects of CTE.
Well, you're a very proactive guy, so I'm sure you have kept abreast of all your own impacts.
Yeah.
And how many times do you think you've been concussed?
Let's see. I've had 3 concussions, I believe. Yeah, I've had 3 concussions where I've come out of games in my playing time, and obviously taken a number of other hits to the head that didn't classify as concussions. But the last one I had was in 2018, and I got kind of clotheslined, and I went over and sat on the bench and was like, oh man, I kind of dinged up a little bit, but felt like I was okay. And then just came on, and my vision just went like, and took myself out of the game. And that one kind of scared me, to be honest, because it didn't feel like I was concussed. It didn't feel like it felt like kind of a normal shot almost. And then it just came on, and I, basically was losing my vision.
Losing your vision? What's going on, Jay?
Probably what's called spreading depression. If you've ever had a migraine, you sometimes have what's called a scintillating scotoma, a little flashy light spot. And that spot's going to expand out to occupy the entire visual field. And then the spot that it started at will recover. So you end up seeing a ring going out. What's happening there is a slow spread because of glial activity. Glia can turn on or off function in the area. And literally it was turning off the function at the back of his head, probably because the visual cortex got hit in the ding that happened, ended up causing the initiation of what's called spreading depression. And literally the glia turn off an area. It takes time. Glia can happen quickly, but for glia to end up spreading, it's an initiation that ends up spreading from a point across. That can take minutes to hours. The rate of spread is something that was actually described by Hewlings Jackson, the Jacksonian March. He was a neurologist who had an epilepsy. He could see how rapidly things shifted across the body, and he attributed it to where in the brain and how fast it's spreading in the brain. Spreading depression, again, is regulated by glia. It's basically turning off the area. And
when you get a big hit in football, I mean, I've seen stars. What is stars? What does that mean? What's going on?
You've just created ischemic change in the area. It's a very temporary feature if it's a really minor one, but you could have triggered spreading depression if it was a more significant one. The stars are neural. You've forced the neurons to discharge, and you're perceiving it as though it's a perception. And seeing stars is what people report, but having your bell rung literally
Yeah.
hearing a ring is another, instead of being visual cortex, is auditory cortex. You can literally end up having a brain area create false sensation, the seeing of stars or hearing of a bell or bells, or when triggered, if it's more severe and you've got glial involvement. Now, traumatic brain injuries can be just neural, and those are concussions. They're gray matter involved, but they can also involve white matter, and those are more severe concussions. Dr. Thatcher in 1997 did a very nice paper looking at quantitative EEG and quantitative MRI correlations in traumatic brain injury. What they found is that delta in the EEG, which is a rhythmic slow feature, ends up being associated with white matter damage, and changes in the alpha and beta frequencies are associated with neural networks, and that's gray matter. Now, gray matter heals up fast, well, relatively fast, relative to the white matter. It's quick. It's like turf. If you make a divot on the golf course, give it a little bit of time. That grass is going to grow right back in. The gray matter is built to end up rehooking everything back up. So usually, fairly quickly, gray matter comes back online. White matter, on the other hand, is not quick. And if you damage white matter significantly, there's something called retrograde degeneration. Not only does the white matter you damage die off or have problems, but all the white matter that was hooked to it are also going to fade away. That may take 6 months to 9 months or over a year for all of the connections to finally die off. So white matter symptoms may progress across time in a way that gray matter stuff just doesn't. White matter is more difficult to recover from. It's a more severe injury. And if you look at the construction of the discriminant functions that have been associated with traumatic brain injury, those are controversial, but just looking at them, the severity index, half of the measures are delta and theta. Whether you had a mild traumatic brain injury or not is almost all alpha and beta. There's one theta metric, but it's basically mild traumatic brain injury as a metric as well. It's not appropriate for severe brain injuries. It's appropriate only for mild traumatic. The basic things are you know the person had a head injury, and you're wondering if they had a brain injury, and the EEG is normal. So if they have an abnormal EEG, epileptiform discharges, focal slowing, if you have an abnormal finding in the EEG, it's not a mild traumatic brain injury. It's caused a significant problem. So the discriminants are reasonably good for research on mild traumatic brain injury, but you have to meet the criteria for using it. If you use it inappropriately as a screening, I'll do this discriminant on everybody, and if it shows positive, then I'll ask them about a head injury. Well, you get about a 50% false positive because you're running it on people you shouldn't have run it on. You don't know that they had a head injury and wonder if they had a brain injury. You're just running on it because they're a patient coming through. And if you do it that way, there's an inordinately large false positive. You shouldn't be doing that. The manufacturer and author of the software basically gives you how to use it and what to use it for. You should pay attention to that. If you use it inappropriately, you're going to get bad results.
Jay, I don't know if you know this or not, and this will be the last one, and we'll let you go. You've just been anointed as the new Roger Goodell. You are the NFL commissioner. What is the process in place? Because it doesn't sound like, from what Aaron Rodgers said, there's a process in place or a standardization of what to do with head injuries. What should the process be? Roger Goodell, this is for you, buddy.
So with post-traumatic ischemia, fixing the aberrant blood flow is job one. You can do other kinds of things at the same time, but you've got to get them into hyperbaric. Hyperbaric ends up being hugely positive, and if you get them in early, you can reverse the ischemia more quickly and more completely. So step one, get them straight into a hard chamber hyperbaric. Don't fiddle around with the cheap out, zip up. body bag form of hyperbaric. You want to use oxygen and you want to have a hard chamber. I know there are people that have low pressure hyperbaric that will be grumbly about me saying that, but I'm going to pay attention to the science, not the
Well, you're the
politics of this
commissioner,
one.
yeah.
In addition to all of that, you can layer on other forms of therapy. Photobiomodulation to gently activate the area that has had the insult. Ischemia needs gentle activation. Don't go the no pain, no gain route. You've got to go soft and gentle because to overtax it basically exceeds the capacity of the limited blood supply. And if you overtax the blood supply beyond what it can supply, you create hypoxia. Hypoxia creates edema. Edema makes ischemia worse. Why do they rest people for a week or so? So that the brain can recover. Why do they put people in a coma after a significant head injury? So the brain can recover. You don't want to waste effort on consciousness if you've got a severe brain injury. You have to let the brain recover before you put it back online. And you don't put people back in a game until they've recovered, because you can tax the area and cause a worsening of the ischemia and create cell death. And cell death doesn't sound like a good outcome, does it? It's not a good outcome.
Commissioner, when do you let the player get back on the field?
Only when they pass tests. Continuous performance tests are appropriate. Balance tests are appropriate. This isn't the how many fingers do I hold up. If you ask me how many fingers I held up, 4 fingers and a thumb. I mean, you can tell somebody's seeing double. It's not a real test. Unfortunately, I lost a very dear friend who was a neurologist who focused on sports and sports injury and recovery, Dr. Harry Karasidis. He actually had a company that had all of the kinds of testing, the continuous performance tasks and that sort of thing. And he was oriented towards sports and was consulting with teams. And then, unfortunately, had a cardiac failure and passed suddenly. I expect to go anytime, and I didn't expect Harry to go at any time. So, unfortunately, we lose some very good people.
Yeah.
But photobiomodulation is a treatment that can go along with hyperbaric. You can sit in a hyperbaric chamber with photobiomodulation helmet or hat on and have it done at the same time. Again, you don't want to over amp it. You want to do gentle recovery. You can be more aggressive on recovery after you've passed the initial ischemia problem. Neurofeedback is also a very good approach. An area that has had ischemia, SMR-related training in the area is a neutral positive perfusion. It's a little above the mean, and you have to actually create some demand for the brain to regulate its own blood supply. If you create a demand for flow, the blood vessels in the area will open up. But if you create too much demand for flow and you exceed the capacity, you cause cell death. So you want to turn it on gently, not turn it all the way on. And SMR, again, is above the mean. It's not at 2 or 3 standard deviations above the mean for perfusion. The basic neuroscience of perfusion and EEG was done at UCLA. Ian Cook at the NPI lab back in the 1990 era did a correlation between perfusions, SPECT scan measured perfusion, and EEG correlation, regardless of the location in the cortex. The theta and the alpha band are hypoperfusion, the lack of the brain being on and functional. But from about 11 to about 16 hertz, it was a neutral positive perfusion. And then the beta range and gamma range are hyperperfusion. And you can't be doing beta or gamma until after some recovery has occurred, or you end up causing a worsening of the ischemia.
Commissioner Gunkelman, would you have a baseline done for everybody in the NFL?
Absolutely. I would have a baseline done on the high school students. You don't have to be a pro to get your head dinged. And you still need the same kind of treatment, because a high school student or a college student who's in sports deserves proper treatment. They're not pawns to be disposed of. And the professional realm has a gigantic feeder program of, like baseball, little league gets you into the pros, and high school football, college football get you into the pros. If you're damaging them on the way up, you're getting damaged goods. And if you want top level players, you have to treat them well on their way up. You can't just wait for them to arrive intact because you're going to lose half of them.
Commissioner Jay Gunkelman, thank you so much for the show. We'll let you get back to Aaron Rodgers.
Have a great day.
Thank you all for watching NeuroNoodles, Neurofeedback, and Neuropsychology podcast. We'd like to thank our Patreon business supporters. We are supported by listeners and businesses just like you, like our gold supporter, Applied Neuroscience Incorporated, the creators of NeuroGuide, the premier EEG assessment and training software whose demo version can be downloaded from the link here. Hey, check it out. Applied Neuroscience is having a workshop September 10th and 11th in Florida, Madera Beach, Florida. Hey, 2 ways you can participate. You can attend the workshop, or you can do it remotely through TeamViewer, or click on the link here, appliedneuroscience.com/attend-ng-workshops. Hey, check it out. Dr. Thatcher's inviting everybody that attends to his house for a cookout. Sign up now. It's going to be a blast. Woohoo! If you have any questions, email qeeg@appliedneuroscience.com. Join us. Hey, thanks to our silver supporters, Mary Tracy's awesome QEEG training program at eegstrategies.com and Mind Media's Nexus EEG amplifier. Welcome aboard, Erwin. They're at mindmedia.com. 3 things our listeners can do to help us spread the word of neurofeedback. Number 1, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Number 2, give us a review on whatever platform you listen to. 5 stars is appreciated, but Jay Gunkelman will accept 4.5. Hey, if you have the means, please support us on Patreon/NeuroNoodle. There are different levels in which you can support us, whether you're a mom or dad or a clinician. There's even an option where you can have your own Q&A with our own Jay Gunkelman. This support helps us improve the quality of our content. Hey, trying to get these video edits even better. Again, we thank you all for watching. Cue the non-copyrighted music.